Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Harrisburg City Council work session. My name is Wanda R.D. Williams. I'm the chair, and all City Council members. Today is Tuesday, May 25th, 2021, and I'm now calling the meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. Mr. Petrosky, please do the roll call.
Mr. Allett?
Present.
Ms. Bowers?
Present.
Ms. Daniels? Ms. Green?
Present.
Mr. Madsen?
Here.
Mr. Majors?
Present.
Ms. Williams?
Here. Thank you, Mr. Petrosky. We now will continue on with the committee business, and we will start with the Building and Housing Committee. And I now will turn it over to Ms. Bowers. Ms. Bowers, Chair.
Thank you, President Williams. Good evening, everyone. We will begin with Resolution 39 of 2020. Mr. Petrosky, could you please read it into the record?
Yes, Resolution 39 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing an extension of a commercial lease of a space for the continued operation of the cable television government access channel, WHBG TV Channel 20.
Thank you. Who from the administration will speak on behalf of this resolution? Anyone?
Councilwoman Bowers?
Yes.
This is Neil. I'll be right back with you.
Okay.
I can address it briefly. I'm walking into chambers with Council President at the moment.
Okay.
So it's going to be an echo.
Okay. Oh, mercy. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, have my microphone. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So this is the lease of the TV studio in the Walnut Street garage. The garage overall was part of the transfer under the parking agreement in 2013. They have an obligation for tax-related reasons under the bonds not to have other revenue streams that makes them taxable. So they have agreed to an extension of the lease at PETPA for no rent for the extension of the lease. And since it's 3 floors above me right now, I forget if it's 30 years, but Rich Cox is the one who worked through it with the parking authority. And he's apparently not here right now. But it's the same lease. We get to be in there. We pay no rent to have the studio in place. So.
Okay. So just for everyone's clarification, the current lease expires on August 31st of this year, 2021. And the parties have determined that extending the term thereof through July 31st, 2041 will serve their mutual interest and that of the viewing public. So just wanted to clarify those dates. I feel it's pretty straightforward. Neil, thank you for your explanation, but I will at this time open the floor for questions from my colleagues. I will begin with Councilwoman Daniels. Do you have any questions about Resolution 39 of 2020?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Madsen, any questions?
No questions for me, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Green, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions?
No, no questions.
Okay, thank you. Vice President Allen, any questions?
Yes, sorry, the only question I have, you mentioned it was a lease for 40 years. Is that if something does change, what are our terms to break the lease if we needed to?
I honestly don't know because it was a free lease.
Okay.
So it would have to be a change in the parking system because it's one small space in the entire giant garage.
Okay.
So the 20 years maps the longest period that the Attorney General approves contracts for as a rule, which I assume is why the state is the one who proposed the 20-year extension, and the state is the one who drafted the lease for us. It didn't seem like there was a lot of negotiation to do since it was free.
Okay,
Yeah, so
that's all then.
Great. Thank you. President Williams, any questions?
No, thank you, Ms. Bowers. That was my question. I wanted to know why it was 20 years when we originally did it. We only did it for 10 years. So Neil answered that, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. At this time, this concludes the work of the Building and Housing Committee. I would urge everyone to support Resolution 39 of 2020 during our legislative session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. We now will move on to the Community Economic Development Committee, and Chair is Mr. Mattson. Mr. Mattson, I'm now turning it over to you.
Thank you, President Williams. Mr. Wachowski, could you read the resolution into the record?
Yes, Resolution 39 of 2021 is a resolution approving the preliminary final subdivision plan to subdivide the property at 1103 South Front Street into two separate parcels in order to develop a tiny home village for homeless veterans on the southern end of the property.
Okay, someone from the administration present to go over the plan?
Yes, Councilman Mattson, Jeffrey Knight, Planning Director.
Okay, thank you. Is there an applicant involved?
Yes, there are, and I believe I've seen at least one of the people involved with the applicant's team here on the call.
Okay.
If I may, this is Bruce Grossman, attorney for the applicant. We're joined by the president of the applicant, Tom Zimmerman, if he may present himself. There he is. So we're here to speak for the applicant.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Knight, floor is yours.
Okay, the resolution here before City Council tonight is for 1103 South Front Street. This particular proposal is a subdivision plan for the existing parcel, which will result in a 5-acre parcel being created at the southernmost end of the parent parcel, which will accommodate a 15-unit tiny home village for homeless veterans. And the applicants have received the requisite zoning relief to do this project at the January and February zoning hearing board meetings. And so the proposal again is a 15-unit tiny home village for homeless veterans. This includes a community center facility for those individuals, as well as for staff and volunteers who will come to help out provide services, and as well as associated site and access improvements, including 2 access routes along the eastern and western side of the property, and a parking area at the southern end of the property. The Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both recommended that the project be approved with the following condition: an easement or other right-of-way dedication, the width of the existing footprint of the capital area greenbelt running from the property to the north at 1101 South Front Street to the bridge over the railroad tracks will be completed alongside the other easements noted in the application to ensure that the public maintains access to this critical stretch of the existing multi-use trail. And then all easement agreements for access through Lot 1, the parcel that will be created to the northern part of the existing lot, to Lot 2 will be provided to the Planning Bureau. And then the Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both recommended that the request be approved for the following reasons. The proposed subdivision has been referenced in previous discussions regarding zoning relief related to the proposed tiny home development on site, and was included in the zoning hearing board's decision to approve those requests. The proposed project will meet a critical need, housing for homeless individuals, and will specifically target a group, veterans, who are disproportionately represented in the homeless population, will provide quality, accessible units that improve their standard of living, and will introduce a unique housing approach that may be a template for future projects. And third, if the recommended conditions of approval are adopted, the proposed project will result in improvements to the site that will provide benefits to the greater public welfare, including formalized access for greenbelt users and improved trail conditions. Property owner has already committed to establishing an easement for a 15-foot wide emergency access route for vehicles roughly running along the existing footprint of the trail, and thus an easement for a short east-west segment connecting the access route to the bridge over the railroad tracks represents a simple extension of this access.
Okay. Thank you for that. Are you finished tonight?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Does the applicant have anything they'd like to add?
Yes, we do. We appreciate all of the support of the city staff and the planning bureau, but we respectfully disagree about the location of the easement for the Greenbelt Trail for a variety of reasons. Really, because it's not necessary in this format. The owners of the property have stated in writing their intention to grant the Greenbelt Trail a easement when they know the final use of their remaining property. Until they know that, they can't commit to any specific location. But they have supported the Greenbelt Trail for over 25 years without any written agreement. They continue to support it. And more importantly, adding this as a condition of the application would violate the federal and state constitutions and the Pennsylvania Private Property Act as a taking without compensation for private use. For all of these reasons, we respectfully request that the council approve our application without this condition. The other condition we're fine with.
And I apologize. I should have said this in the beginning. There was some correspondence or documentation that was sent to council. Did everybody receive that on council?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just checking. And I know Ms. Grove wanted to address council as well, so I will give the floor to her since she is the owner of the land in question. Yep. You're on mute.
Unmute yourself.
There we go. I just wanted to thank council for giving us the opportunity this evening to address this. Along with the things that were sent to the council today was a map. If you pull that out, if everyone has a copy of that map, you'll see what our concern is. The Greenbelt presently has two ways of getting to the bridge. And this is the map. It's not going to show up on the screen well enough, given my screen. So, but you should have a copy of this, everyone. Do you have that? It was sent to you today. Ms. Williams, President Williams, did that get sent to you?
Yes, as well. Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you. The red line going diagonally through the remaining parcel that has been called or addressed as Lot 1, that can remain until we sell the property. And at that time, then we're going to relocate the Greenbelt, which goes down the side of the river, and that's still going to be remaining until, in fact, forever, as far as we're concerned. And then it will cut across the northern part of the Veterans plot, and then go up along their path or not path, but the road that they're going to establish, and connect to the bridge. Now, there's a hill there that already has a path for the Greenbelt, because they had been walking clear down to the point where, if you look on your map, I don't know if you can see it, but Dauphin, the Paxton Creek is at the southernmost part. I just was kicked off. Can you still hear me?
Yes. We can
Okay.
see you too, Pat. We can see you.
Okay, well, I can't see you, so this doesn't matter. But the southernmost tip is where the Paxton Creek dumps into the Susquehanna River. So they have been traversing, and they have a nice path. It's always been kept cut, and they planted some things, and we've added some things to their various sundry places to stop and view the river. Both rocks are there and some seating, etc. And if you've never had the opportunity, I encourage everyone to take a walk down, starting at the Sycamore Street, and walk down and around here. The bridge is a very sturdy bridge that was built, and it takes us from this side of the railroad tracks to the other side of the railroad tracks. And so that's is most important, that the Greenbelt still have access to that. And the way that we anticipate doing this is to access it in that way. Does anyone have any questions as to why we have a concern, first of all? And secondly, if you have no questions about that, we have been working with the Greenbelt. We've paid liability insurance for them to traverse our property for 25 years. We've had a very good relationship, and we don't intend to change that in any way. And we did send a letter to that effect. And if they can be patient until we sell this land, and we are selling many of our properties right now, so it is on the market, and it will be marketed. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you for that. Mr. Knight, would you like to comment on the easement piece?
So I heard a reference from Ms. Grove that the easement would run across the northern end of the, I guess, lot 2. Is that correct? So, okay.
Correct.
Which is, I think, a little bit different than what some of our conversations had been before, because I know that I think the initial proposal was to have a fence at the property line, and the Veterans Home or Veterans Outreach of PA had indicated, that they didn't want to have the general public mixing with their residents, which makes complete sense. Their residents need the solitude and the space to work on their palliative care needs. So that's a little bit different than I think what we had discussed before. And I think there was also some discussion from Mr. Grossman about how, because the easement, or because the Greenbelt ran across a property that was not going to be theirs, that it was not related to their particular project. So if the Greenbelt will maintain an easement going along the access road and then across parts of lot number 2, the parcel that will accommodate the Veterans Village, I think that's a bit of a different condition than what our previous discussions or documentation had maybe indicated. So, the Planning Bureau would be fine with that, so long as that was, again, formalized. We'd want to maybe see a little bit of where that proposed footprint may be. And I know the city engineer, Wayne, had indicated that we could do something like a movable easement, something I'm less familiar with, but would basically say that so long as a path of the existing width of the trail was created somewhere within these 2 parcels, then that would be acceptable too from the city's perspective, because it would help us, achieve the goals that we're looking to do. Now, I'm not a lawyer, certainly. I'm not familiar with all of the options or the specifics of how easements are drawn up, but perhaps our Law Bureau staff can speak a little bit more to that.
If I may just clarify one point, I believe Ms. Peggy Grove explained that the proposed easement would run essentially along the southern border of her property, abutting right next to the dividing property line. So the easement would still be on what would be lot 1.
Okay.
Thank you
Correct.
for that clarification.
That's correct. And then it would follow along the road that is to be established, but there's already a path there now along the railroad tracks. And we've called it the fire lane or emergency access road, which goes all around the perimeter of the property right now as it stands. And that's what the Greenbelt has been using as their path. And of course, we'll make it safe, whatever is necessary. But we are not willing to do an easement. That is firm.
So I'm a little confused. So it sounds like Mr. Grossman is saying Ms. Grove is willing to establish the trail north of the subdivision line. But Ms. Grove is saying that she's not willing to do an easement, which somewhat contradicts a letter we have from September 30th of 2020 that was written by the Capital Area Greenbelt to Mr. Zimmerman of Veterans Outreach of PA, in which it was indicated that it says on paragraph 4 of the letter, moreover, we understand that Ms. Grove will grant an easement allowing the trail a permanent location in the area. Now,
at which time it's sold.
When it's sold.
I mean, from the planning bureau's perspective, and I understand that this could happen at some theoretical time in the future when the property is sold, but we note that, other access easements were provided for both the emergency access road and the main route along the railroad tracks for utilities. And we're a bit unsure and if they know where they want the trail to go, we're a bit unsure as to why an easement cannot now be formalized to meet the commitment that Ms. Grove stated in that letter from the Capital Area Greenbelt Association and the discussion at today's meetings. We would like to see it happen now. Obviously, the issue of creating easements is not a problem, as those have already been created, seems just with this easement. And so we would just like to see at least maybe some written commitment, even if maybe not even a formalized easement, but a written commitment to seeing that this trail is maintained as a connection between 1101 South Front Street and the railroad bridge, the bridge over the railroad track, sorry.
Do you have a copy of our commitment letter that was sent on April 22nd, 2021?
I don't believe I've received that. Was that sent to the city or was that sent to?
That was sent to you, sir. You were copied on it.
Okay.
It was an attachment to the letter to Solicitor Grover back in April or early May.
Okay.
Real quick, out of curiosity, is there anybody representing the Greenbelt on the call? Okay, just wanted to see.
Yes, there are.
Okay,
my name is Michael Shaw. I'm the new incoming president for the Capital Area Greenbelt, just effective January 1st of this year. And I'm also joined by a fellow board member and colleague, Richard Norford. He is also present this evening as well, although we are here simply to observe and listen. And
okay,
really nothing more.
Any feedback or comments in the discussion or on the easement?
They're here to observe, Dave.
Yeah, okay, all right.
They're here to observe.
Okay, all right, no worries. So can we get Mr. Knight that letter?
Okay, well, let me just say the one paragraph that is salient to our conversation. For now, we will continue to allow the Greenbelt Trail to remain in its present location on our property, which would include this diagonal path. We intend to grant the trail a complete permanent location on our property as soon as the property is sold. Okay? And that's what we're willing to do. This is private property, and the alternative we don't even want to talk about.
Well, yeah.
Okay?
So there's two follow-up questions I have. Is there any time sensitivity with the project? Does it have to get approved tonight, essentially is what I'm asking.
Councilman Madsen, if I may, just to bring you up to speed, they did submit their land development plan. It has not yet gone to the Planning Commission. That is scheduled to be heard at the June meeting, I believe. So they're, not quite ready to, put a shovel in the ground.
Okay, so there is no time sensitivity at the moment.
Councilman, my name is Ellen Brown, and I represent Veterans Outreach of Pennsylvania for fundraising. And I would say it is very urgent, because without taking title to this property, it is nearly impossible for us to raise the funds necessary to move forward with all of the land planning work that needs to be done in order to finalize the project before we have a shovel in the ground.
Okay. Understood. Now, I guess the preference would be for us to, it can't wait a week, 2 weeks, it has to be tonight, if I'm hearing you correctly.
If it's at all possible, because we're concerned about summer recess of council and or any of the rest of the committees that this has to go through.
Okay.
Councilman Madsen, I would note also that because as Ms. Baldock noted, the land development plan has been submitted. We could, in theory, add the approval of the subdivision as a condition on the land development plan, which will hopefully be brought to you and heard and acted upon before council goes on hiatus. That may not be on the timeline they're talking about with regard to fundraising, but I don't think it would affect the overall development timeline, because the land development plan still needs to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and City Council.
Okay. So,
pardon me a second. Without this subdivision plan, we can't transfer land. We cannot give the land to them. And that's really what's necessary. So it's why it's done in 2 steps.
okay. So my question is the written agreement sufficient enough for the administration to move forward for a vote tonight?
So I'm guessing, so I found the document I believe that the applicants are referring to. It's dated from April 26th, correct, Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm looking through it right now. Could the applicants specify exactly where the what page and paragraph the condition is on?
It's an attachment to the letter to Solicitor Grove, and it's the, I believe, 5th paragraph. The letter is headed from the Green Chair Trust, which is the entity that the Groves own the property through. It's a separate letter.
Okay, I see. Yep.
Councilman Madsen.
Mr. Majors? Yeah, I was going to open up the questions, but go ahead.
Yeah, the thing I was gonna ask is it possible to have Mr. Knight share that document, because I'm not in receipt of the letter dated April 21st with council, because
I think an email was sent, Mr. Majors. Look on your email, and I think there's 4 documents attached to that email. Do you see? Do you have that?
I have a couple of documents. I don't see the one that's in question regarding the letter. That letter.
Mr. Knight, would you mind forwarding that to the clerk real quick, and then they can send it to the rest of council, just to make sure.
Sending it right now.
Mr. Madsen.
Yes, President Williams.
In reality, we're saying that we have an applicant giving land to put a village for the veterans, for a tiny village for veterans.
Mhm.
This is property that's being given on behalf of her trust fund, as well as allowing the Greenbelt to exist on her property for over 25 years, her paying the insurance liability and all the taxes associated with it. Why are we allowing someone to tell that applicant, and it could be anyone, and just because it's Ms. Grove, it could be anyone. Why are we allowing the city of Harrisburg to tell them that they cannot relocate the Greenbelt, when in actuality, that land belongs to that applicant?
Yeah.
That's my question to Mr. Knight, because you're going back with the debate whether or not where you want someone who owns that property. What in fact, if she decides not to give that, take that Greenbelt away from you?
Well, and that's,
Then
and
what would
that's,
you do?
well,
Because you don't have a commitment right now.
But-
Excuse me. You don't have a commitment right now from the applicant regarding the Greenbelt. It's been an extension of her allowing them to utilize that area. So why are we giving her a hard time instead of just relocating the Greenbelt Trail?
President William, fair points. Just real quickly, was that written correspondence sent to council, and is council able to read it? I know Mr. Knight forwarded the email. I just want to make sure that
Yeah, it's sent. You should all have it. And it's
I have it. We have it.
Okay.
And sorry, Councilman Mattson, I would just note, and Council President Williams, I would just note, we're not asking anything that the applicant has not already committed to. As in their letter that was just sent out from April 22nd, they do state that there will be a permanent easement on the property. So we're not asking the applicant to do something to which they have not already committed. We're just asking that that be done alongside this land development application. And we're also not requesting that the Greenbelt remain in its current footprint. We understand that the Greenbelt as it stands now bisects the lot 2, which will remain after this subdivision, and that may complicate maybe selling the property in the future or development of the property. And we are fully in support of a rerouting of the trail itself to the southern end of lot 2. We are just kind of looking for that commitment, that formalized commitment that the applicant has stated both in communications with the Capital Area Greenbelt Association and in the letter from April 22nd. We're not asking for anything that the property owner is not already committed to.
But the property owner may want to change her mind. And if she changes her mind, that's her property. So if she changes her mind about a commitment that she had prior made, she's looking forward to trying to sell that property. So if she needs not to do this without the conditions and be able to sell her property and then reinstate a Greenbelt Trail. I don't see why the city should have a problem with that. She's given a piece of her property free to the Greenbelt, paying all the liability costs and the taxes on it. So why are we in a debate about something that the city of Harrisburg does not even own?
President Williams, if I may, the thought here was, one, to have a public discussion about the Greenbelt and the future thereof, and to see if we could secure an easement, whether that was from Ms. Grove, who's the owner of the property, or from the applicant, the Veterans Outreach Group. But at this point, it doesn't sound like that even if we were to reroute the Greenbelt right now, that the Veterans Group does not want the Greenbelt on their property.
Okay.
That's my understanding. So again, to Director Knight's recommendation, it was to have this public discussion so everyone is aware of the status of the Greenbelt and any future implications that this may have.
But the applicant has the right to change her mind.
And she's actually not the applicant, President Williams. It's the Veterans Group who's actually the applicant.
Okay, but it's the veteran, the owner. I'll say the property owner then, Ms. Baldock.
Sure.
Let's be specific then, the property owner, okay? The property owner is indicating that she's given a piece of land or allowing the Greenbelt to have the trail through there. All of this is her property. And it's
Correct.
not because it's just Ms. Gross. I want to make that clear because it's Ms. Gross and I know her personally. I'm stating that this is her property. If she decides that she wants to not include these conditions, that's her right. If she makes that decision to relocate that Greenbelt Trail, that's her right. Because in actuality, she does not have to allow the Greenbelt Trail to go through her property.
Correct.
So we're
You're
giving
absolutely
her, but we're
correct.
giving her a hard time about property that does not belong to the city of Harrisburg.
I don't see it as giving anyone a hard time. It's about a public discussion and to see what we can do to make the Greenbelt permanent.
But she's not agreeable. Well, she's not agreeable at this time. She's
And-
agreeable to waiting to make sure that she sells the property and then she relocates the easement.
And that is correct. She is not agreeing to this, and it sounds like the veterans group is not agreeing to it either. And Attorney Grossman was made well aware that this condition, the applicant is free to reject the condition.
Right.
You're right. That's their prerogative.
And come before council. And we lose a Greenbelt and we lose we lose an opportunity to have a tiny home village for the homeless veterans. So do we want to lose everything instead of trying to work with the property owner?
That's what this public discussion is about. It's about working with the property owner to figure out what, if anything, can be done. If it can't be done, it can't be done.
It doesn't seem that way to me. It seems like the city, Mr. Knight is pushing, like recommending that if we don't do one thing, that another thing would happen. What if she decides not allow the Greenbelt Trail to go through her property at all again? Then we would use accessibility to the Greenbelt, which would be detrimental to the city of Harrisburg because that's used a lot.
Yes,
and then
I
also
think
we
Mr.
use
Knight,
the advantage of having a village for homeless veterans on
Yes,
that property.
And,
I
and
think
We desperately need.
protecting the Greenbelt is what Mr. Knight is trying to do.
Exactly.
And Council President Williams, I just want to note, we are fully supportive of the project. We supported the zoning relief that was necessary to make the project go through. We are supporting this subdivision and we will be supporting the land development plan. So we certainly do not want to hold a good project hostage to any sort of delay. As noted, we're really only asking for what the property owner has committed to. And, we're willing to be flexible. We're willing to, see any permutation of the Greenbelt go forward. But, as much as the Veterans Home project is critical and essential, especially to the residents that will live there, the Greenbelt connection, this is a very critical property because of the limited crossings over the railroad tracks. And so we just want to ensure that this, resource is there going into the future, recognizing that Ms. Grove has allowed the public to use the property for access over these past years.
But you're going to lose access to everything if you don't try to accommodate the property owner. That's what I'm saying. You're saying that you're very concerned about how critical it is to have a village for homeless veterans, how critical it is to the residents of City Harrisburg to have a Greenbelt Trail. So this is her property. Can you not understand? If I have an opportunity, I want to sell another piece of my property, I change my mind. I should have every right to reconstruct how I want to do things on that lot. I can't understand why we are, and Ms. Baldock said we're not debating with her, but we certainly are. I want both projects. I want the Greenbelt Trail, and I also want the Veterans Home for homeless veterans.
Can I speak a moment, please? I really appreciate everyone's opinion and et cetera. And thank you, Wanda, for putting a little bit different spin on this and a way to look at things. If everyone would just look at their map, if they have that with them, or pull it up on your computer, the trail as it has been had two paths. One went way down along the entire perimeter of this property that is shown on the map. That portion that is in the lot number 1 that has been cordoned off for the VOPA or the Veterans Project, that's where initialing it as, will not be available to the Greenbelt once construction starts. That is going to be a private area. Obviously, some of these veterans may have disabilities, etc., and they should, the whole point of putting this in a very quiet, isolated area was to give them that opportunity. Secondly, the portion of their trail, their secondary trail, which cuts diagonally across lot number 1, that leads to their bridge, that's the portion that more than likely will not be available to them. Now, there are 2 ways we can do that. We can change that. We can take it across the top of the property that abuts the PennDOT building, the northernmost portion of the lot number 1, or we can take it all the way down and take it across. Still, we would build some kind of border or some kind of screening so that they would not be intrusive to the veterans, and bring it across the bottoming and then along the parkway or the driveway or the the street, whatever ends up going in there, that will be the causeway for the veterans as well as for lot number 1, continuing a spur that we required PennDOT to put in to start with because we anticipated developing this land some 25 years ago when the PennDOT building was built. So, and I have no problem doing a formal letter of intent stating what I have just stated with pictures, etc. But we cannot at this point, it would hamstring us to do an easement at this point. So that's, and I'm going to definitely donate this land to the veterans regardless of what goes on here, and I will take this aside, and if I have to do this in a separate case, and I certainly don't want to play this out in court, but it's my intent, and I say that, and it's my son is standing here and he's my only heir. It is our intent to do an easement as soon as we know what we're going to do with that land. And I have no, I have no qualms in telling the people that would buy this land that there is a green belt, and I doubt that they're going to have a problem with that. It's just that they may want complete access to the river, and that's the big thing right there. So I can't do anything more than that at this point. So a formal letter of intent, and I can use the Law Bureau to guide me through that so that that it would have some legal teeth from your perspective. That's what I offer at this point. Thank you so much.
Hello, this is Tom Zimmerman, President of Veterans Outreach. President Williams, can I have a minute?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mattson is the chair, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So, Mr. Mattson, I'm sitting here listening to this whole thing, and I greatly appreciate what everybody has done for the Veterans Outreach of Pennsylvania. And one thing I wanted to add to Mrs. Grove's thing is that even though that she's not willing to do anything right now, she's still going to allow the permission to use the access as it currently is on that map. So whether or not, there's a decision tonight, whether or not it's accepted with Mrs. Grove's offer, but I really appreciate everything that everybody has done. We as a group at the Veterans Outreach are really looking forward to get the subdivision plan. We need to get that title, as was brought up by our consultant, and we do want to move forward with this project as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for that. At this stage, we will open it up to questions and comments from my colleagues. Given that this is regarding housing, we will start with Councilwoman Bowers.
Thank you, Councilman Majors. There was another hand raised. I didn't know if you.
Oh,
the hand.
sorry, I missed that.
That's okay.
Whose hand is it? I'm having trouble seeing it.
Mr. Richard Norford.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Norford.
I'm Richard Norford with the Capital Area Greenbelt. First of all, it's a wonderful project in Greenbelt, but I absolutely endorse you, Ms. Grove. I just have one question. The way the trail runs now, unclear on the alternative. I understood moving over at the PennDOT building, but you had a second alternative. Could I just ask you to clarify that a little bit? I'm looking at the map online now.
Okay, the border between lot 1 and lot 2, the green belt will go across the bottom of, the bottom of lot 1.
It's the southernmost part of that land.
The southernmost part of the
remaining
remaining land. The northern border of the BOPA project and the southern, not on their land, on our land.
I don't know where that border is.
There's a
Ms.
line
Grove.
going across. What map are you looking at?
So if you go down the green, all the way down to the green where the straight line goes across the east-west, that's the divider right there. Where you see the heart, to the left of the heart, that's the dividing land of the 5 acres. So that red line, if you were to go straight down that green line, would go all the way down to that borderline and then go west, right? No, go east, I'm sorry. And then back up north.
Yeah, Mr. Norford, basically, yeah, you're connecting the end of the green hatched area and the end of the blue hatched area on that map you see on your screen right now in that general vicinity.
And what a wonderful project. I'm glad we can be a part of it. Thank you, Ms. Grove. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ms. Bowers?
Thank you, Chair Madsen. I guess just one protocol question. I know that the vote is timely for this evening, but just should Mrs. Grove share her letter of intent? Is that an added condition before we would move forward with our final vote?
I have no problem doing that.
I just wanted to clarify if it was needed as an additional exhibit or for the file prior to our vote.
So I know in previous cases, we've approved plans with the condition that a certain provision is met. Could we do that in this instance? I'm asking the lawyer for an opinion that this letter of intent that Ms. Grove spoke of be a condition as part of approval of the plan.
Chair Madsen, you can certainly make it a condition of the plan, not having seen the letter of intent. You know, it's tough to put parameters on it.
I'm going to use the Law Bureau's guidance.
And Ms. Grove, I appreciate that. We cannot give you legal advice.
Well, do you have a template that I could use?
If we can get, I think maybe what it sounds like what we should do here is have a conversation and try to get this approved. We're meeting next Tuesday, correct? Is it a legislative session?
No.
No, our legislative session is tonight.
No, I know that. I know that, but I didn't know if we were going to have another one next Tuesday.
No,
It'd be June 8th.
next Tuesday is a work session. But now, we have done this several times where we've had work sessions and then we go into legislative session. So if you want to do that, we can do the work session next Tuesday and then follow through with the legislative session.
Just for this.
Yeah, just for one. Well, anything else that may come up, though, there may be other things that we are looking to vote on.
Okay, I'll let my colleagues finish their questions and then we'll kind of go from there.
Neil, I have a question for Neil. Mr. Grover.
Yes, Madam President.
Okay, Mr. Grover. Several
Yes.
times we've made exceptions regarding any type of resolution that we've done, and we needed additional documents to verify our vote, okay? So
Yes.
would this be a problem? The letter of intent legally would be a problem to go ahead and approve this without having that letter attached to this, or should we make an amendment that would be inclusive of that letter of intent?
I think the council has a number of options at the moment,
Exactly.
and I don't think it's one way or the other.
So we can
I will note that the legal relationship that's really at question from my point of view is the capital area Greenbelt and Miss Grove's organization that has the property over there. The condition you're adding to the veterans application, not Miss Grove's application. And it really, we normally go to the applicant and say, are you happy with the condition? That's where we normally go. And so it's a good offer from Miss Grove to put that on there. But the real question is the applicant satisfied with that condition?
Is the applicant not present tonight?
No, they're here. That's Mr.
Okay, so-
Grossman is speaking for them. So I think that's who you put the question to.
Okay.
Is that condition, waiting for that letter, is that a condition that the veterans group is comfortable with till next week or the week after that? Because we don't currently have an advertised legislative session next week. We could, but we don't have one yet. But the first question is that a condition they are comfortable with?
I would say that we are comfortable with Ms. Grove's offer. And we would prefer not to have the subdivision approval conditioned on that, since it doesn't pertain directly to our application.
Okay. So you prefer us to approve this without the conditions? Is that what you're?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what they're asking. That was their ask to start with.
Okay.
At the end of the day, nothing that the council does tonight on this application or on the rest of this project alters the relationship between the Greenbelt and Ms. Grove's organization. They ultimately have to work that out when the land goes up for sale. That would always be so, because there'll be a new owner who's going to have a say at that point in time. You know, I think what Ms. Grove is offering, what the Greenbelt is saying back, is that both parties believe that each other is acting in good faith on the future, not knowing exactly what it holds. You know, and I don't think there's going to be much better than anyone can do than that, because there's going to be a third party that comes in with money to invest in that land, and they're going to want to have some discussion about their use for it. And so, while I think this is a very positive public discussion, the simple reality is a plan in front of you to approve. The applicant doesn't prefer the conditions. And as Ms. Baldock had advised you, the condition that was theirs to reject. They weren't bound by it. So while I think it's valuable, I believe the Greenbelt discussion and Ms. Grove's property discussion is a discussion for another point in time when there's a buyer to the property.
Thank you, Mr. Grover. Mr. Mattson, you want to continue, please?
Yeah, I was just gonna, Ms. Bowers, were you finished?
Yes, I'm done. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, yep. Ms. Green? Councilman Green?
I don't have any questions at this moment. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Allett?
So I'm a little confused. In terms of proceeding tonight, do we remove the condition? Is that what we're discussing? Is that where all parties are looking at? I'm just trying to understand.
That was going to be my recommendation as chair after everybody's questions, essentially, was that we remove the easement because it, based off what Mr. Grover just said, it really is something that they have to work out amongst themselves and are. So I don't know really what, or I don't know that we have, it's a necessary role for us to place that easement in it. That's what I'm reading from the conversation.
Okay, that's kind of where my head's at. I'm just trying to.
Thank you.
All right, that's all I had.
Yes. All right. Councilman Majors?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for that, because I think that was where I was trying to bring it back to where the issue was. So in terms of any of the conditions, there's only one condition that the property owner had taken issue with, and that's the one that we could potentially remove as a condition. The only other question I had was, I just want to make sure the portion of the property that is going to be utilized for the veterans homes, that's located in the 100-year floodplain. Is that correct? No. Here, I see Mr. Knight shaking his head no. That part of the property, and it's not in the floodplain. It's not in the flood zone at all. Correct.
There are portions of the property to be subdivided that will accommodate the Veterans Village that are in the 100-year floodplain, mainly along the Susquehanna River and the Paxton Creek. But the development footprint proposed by the applicants is not in the 100-year floodplain.
So if I may, the homes themselves and the community center will not be located in the 100-year floodplain.
Okay, I was just making sure as I was reading through that I was reading that correctly. Okay, all right, they're all not in there, and I guess we just have that one condition to work through. And to Mr. Grover's point, ultimately, whatever happens with the excess of the green belt in that area is going to be decided between the property owner and whoever a potential buyer is. And I guess there are plans for a sale of that in the near future.
No, not in the near future. It is being marketed.
Okay. All right. No further questions at this point right now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels?
So what were the zoning requirements that, what zoning relief was provided on these lots?
So the zoning relief was for the use, I believe, of a supportive housing facility. I think may have initially been proposed as a use not specifically prohibited in the zoning code, but I think in their deliberations, the zoning hearing board determined, I believe, that it fell under supportive housing. So it required, I believe, a special exception for that. And then there was also a variance because we have a minimum building height in the riverfront district of, I think, 45 feet, I want to say, or 35 feet. And the height of the largest building, which will be the community center, I think was in the neighborhood of like 26 feet or so. So they needed to have relief from the minimum building height.
Okay. And so this is the division of the land portion of all of this whole overarching project.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so I also would like clarification on the parties involved because at some point everyone got confused to me in this conversation. So Mr. Grossman is representing the veterans group.
Correct.
Mr. Thompson is representing the veterans group as the principal.
Tom Zimmerman is.
Okay, sorry, there was a Tom.
That's all right.
And then Ms. Grove is the owner of the property.
Correct.
And then there's a potential buyer at the end of this.
Not yet.
Okay, so there's really no discussion about a third entity. So in terms of, so this is a question for my edification. So the veterans group doesn't own the land at this moment. How are they able to submit the application? Like, can someone submit an application like this when they're not?
If I may address that.
Yeah.
We have a contract from the owner of the land to donate the land. That gives us an equitable right in the land to file the application.
Okay. And so, okay, so why didn't the owner file for this themselves?
Not our project.
Ms. Daniels, it's not unusual for a zoning or transfer of title to land or a building to be contingent upon all the approvals being, because if it ultimately wasn't approved for what's being sought, the buyer would have no basis to move forward. So the municipal planning code lets them come in and do this, whether it's a donation or a purchase. And you've seen many that have come through that the actual applicant is not the owner. They're the ones who want to be the owner, and their agreement requires approvals before a transfer of title takes place, because they would have no interest in the property if they couldn't use it for what their proposal was.
Correct.
Okay. So, okay, and then I guess so. So this land is being subdivided. The veterans group is going to secure title to this land, but the objection to the easement is if there's another buyer somewhere out there.
No, the objection to the easement is basically, as Solicitor Grover summarized, it's not an issue for the applicant at all. It involves Ms. Grove and the Greenbelt Trail, not the applicant and not the application before the council.
Well, maybe I can also just inject here. It's a total of 20 acres, council, and we're subdividing 15 acres into our, and then we would get the 5 acres. So I think that might be a little bit of the confusion that you might have. It's a total of 20. We're subdividing it. We're going to get the 5 most southern of those acres, and the 15 acres will remain ownership of the current owners, and they are marketing that 15 acres for potential buyers. We are not going to be selling the Veterans Outreach of Pennsylvania 5 acres. That is going to be a permanent spot where we will be putting our community.
And the issue of the easement is entirely on the property remaining after our subdivision, not on the applicant's property.
Okay. Okay. I think those are all my questions.
Okay, if you think of some more, we'll come back to you. So it sounds like what I would recommend as chair is that we remove or make an amendment to remove the easement of concern. Now, clarification from the Law Bureau, does that have to happen in the legislative session, or can we do that during the work session?
You would have to do it by motion in the legislative session.
Okay. And then, yeah, okay, and then council would vote. Okay, that is my recommendation to share as we move, how we proceed moving forward, is when we break out into legislative session, we make the amendment to remove the easement of concern.
Okay, Mr. Mattson, is that the end? Is that all?
Yeah, unless there's any additional questions or comments.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Mr. Mattson.
Oh, that concludes Community and Economic Development Committee. Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll now move on to Budget and Finance Committee. Mr. Alec.
Thank you. All right, up for discussion is Bill 6 of 2021. Kirk, would you like to read that into record?
Yes, Bill 6 of 2021 is an ordinance authorizing and approving the intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority for Harrisburg in accordance with Section 203D of the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authorities Act for cities of third class.
All right, thank you. And Neil, as a way to begin this, I know we had prior discussions on this, and there's discussion about taking the final agreement and getting it taken care of with the ICA and then presented back to the court. I'm assuming all the language has been finalized and approved by the administration of the ICA at this point.
Right. When the council met on April the 27th, I believe, it's actually the exact same agreement. The ICA then voted on the same agreement the following day at their monthly meeting. And it will be going forward to the court for formal approval with a formal application. This ordinance is a requirement under Act 124. So the resolution, which is the typical way an agreement gets approved, was to basically show that the council and the mayor were in agreement on the language of the agreement. That helped us move forward with the ICA in the formal introduction and their vote. It's not been executed yet, but Act 124 actually says the agreement will be subject to an ordinance approval by the city. And so the full discussion we had last time is really the exact same discussion today. It's the same agreement, same terms. It's just checking a box that Act 124 created to have an ordinance. And this was introduced the same night that you heard the last piece with the resolution.
That is correct. So I'm going to defer to colleagues if there are any additional questions on this. I'll start with, if we were sitting on the dais, with Councilmember Daniels.
So none of the changes you had recommended were included, or?
It was a one-word change, and the ICA declined to make the one-word change. I had recommended that it be approved in either version. The board articulated why they thought that change wasn't really necessary, and but the recommendation to the city council was that they approve it either way, and it really was a change in tone. They just felt that we perhaps were misreading the tone with the language that was there, and so they approved it without that one-word change.
Okay. That's it for me.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Majors, I muted myself.
Oh, thank you. So as long as all the conditions and everything that was in the last plan that we discussed are still there, nothing has changed. As Shemaine mentioned, as Councilwoman Daniels mentioned, about the one recommended change that was rejected. So in terms of timeline moving forward, what's the timeline in terms of getting this before the judge and then continuing forward through the process?
The hope is that this is before the judge with a series of other applications.
Can you hear me? I don't know if I'm breaking up.
Can you hear me, Mr. Majors?
It looks like Wes froze. Oh, he's back.
Councilman Majors, can you hear us?
I'm having an internet issue, so I'll
come back to you. Okay, I'll move over to Council President Williams.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, Councilmember Mattson.
No questions for me, thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Green.
Thank you. I don't have any questions tonight.
Okay, Councilmember Bowers.
Don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Majors, you back with us?
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yep. Sure can.
All right. I was having trouble hearing Neil, so I don't know. Other than that, that was the only question I had. So if you could just clarify the timeline.
The expectation is that it would be in front of the court in June, and barring any hiccups, approved in July. That would be the expectation. But it's one of several things that have to go to the court. Myself and the chief counsel for the Commonwealth just met with the judge again. I believe it was the beginning of last week or the end of the week before process, because this is really the first time the related Act 47 exit process in a court has ever occurred. There's just some wrinkles to work through to make sure everybody's comfortable.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. Neil, could you just kind of keep council up to date on the progress of this as it moves through the court? I know once it leaves us when we pass it, it's sometimes hard to know what happens next with it.
So the expectation is that the application of this and other applications together with the Act 47 exit application, which is to ask for the court's final administrative order to hold on to the jurisdiction to some bigger issues in the recovery plan, that gets submitted. The court issues a notice to all the interested parties of their rights to respond. But the anticipation is that it will be basically stipulated to by all the interested parties, so that it will be a non-disputable, non-disputed document. Under Act 47, there's a requirement for a hearing under what's section 255.1, I believe. And so the very unusual step is that the judge is going to schedule a hearing with the Secretary of DCED presiding as well, because it's an Act 47 hearing. So it's going to be a combination administrative judicial proceeding, and that he will rule on the facts in terms of the stipulations that the city satisfied the Act 47 conditions to exit. The court would be there to ratify them. That would be followed by an order issued by the court, which then upon issuance would not be final for 30 days because that's the appeal period. And once that is final and unappealable, then we would execute the agreement and formally be out of Act 47 at that point.
Correct. And my only request is just if you could kind of just give us updates as the stages move through, that'd be appreciative.
Certainly. And there may be a request that, one or more council members be in attendance. The judge indicated that it is going to be in a courtroom. It's going to be a hearing. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, that concludes discussion on
Mr. Allett.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I didn't know if you see my hand. I didn't know if you see my hand. Neil,
Oh,
Neil, that was going to be my question because the last time we were invited to the hearing. So my next question is that you had indicated that it would be in court in June and approved in July. But with all the hearings and then the Secretary of DCED being involved, what if there's recommendations? Do we have an opportunity to then bring it back to council?
So if there are, the expectation of all parties is that it'll be a final document before it gets to court.
Okay.
So that, very much like the final recovery plan was, it was approved by all parties and stipulated to. And it will very closely mirror the application that the governor had to vacate Act 47 receivership in terms of the type of document it will be. And there'll simply be stipulations of fact that have to do with the language in Act 47, which is the city is no longer subject to fiscal distress, that the check boxes essentially have been met. And the secretary is obligated under the statute to look at that to make sure that is so. But every indication we've had along the way is that that is exactly where we are.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Allett. That's all I have.
No problem. Thank you. And that does conclude our discussion on Bill 6 of 2021 and therefore concludes the Budget and Finance portion of this committee meeting.
Thank you. Would you like this to go on the legislative agenda?
Yes, let's move this to our legislative session immediately following.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Petrowski, would you please see if there's any public comment at this time, please?
Sure, now's the time for public comment. If anyone would like to participate, if you could please raise your hand and identify yourself for the record. Okay, we have a couple hands raised. I'm going to unmute you. Give me 1 second, please. Ms. Parson, you're unmuted.
Thank you, Mr. Petrosky. Council, I would like to point out to you an issue of transparency and accountability. Your agenda for tonight's meeting and several past meetings have said that your call to order is at 6 o'clock. I logged on tonight at approximately 5:47, and you were well into the agenda. You need to make sure that your agendas, which are on the city website, that they have an accurate call to order. Because for several meetings, I have missed public comment and have missed a portion of the meeting because what the agenda says as your start time and when you actually start is not the same thing. And just simply because all council members are present does not mean that you start the meeting. You start the meeting when your agenda says you start the meeting. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thank you too.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
What calendar are you looking at? Because I'm looking at both calendars and they say 5:30 on each of them.
I am looking at your agenda, which is on the city website under City Council, because I always download those agendas prior to the meetings so that I know what you're going to be discussing.
Ms. Parkin, just for clarification purpose, Ms. Parsons, I'm sorry,
Wait a
this
minute,
is,
excuse me. Everybody cannot talk at the same time, please. Now, Kirk, are you finished giving an explanation to Ms. Parsons?
No, I think where the disconnect was, it's listed as a work session for 5:30 and then the legislative sessions at 6 o'clock. So if you would pull up the calendar, you would look at legislative session, you would see 6 o'clock, but you won't know to look at work session. But if you also look on the Google Calendar, it indicates that the work session starts at 5:30 and then the legislative starts at 6. I'm not sure if anyone else saw anything different, but
is there an agenda for the work session?
yes, it's posted.
Yes, there's an agenda for the work session. It's posted.
Okay, then maybe I missed that. You know, the whole way that you have agendas and minutes, the way they appear on the city website is very confusing. And you have to use a bunch of filters to really get what you're looking for. And so I tried just filtering out for today's date, or maybe I tried, excuse me, looking for May agendas, but I only saw one agenda for Tuesday, May 25th. And I've closed that I don't have that window up now, but I will look for that.
Thank you. Mr. Majors, Mr. Majors,
Yeah,
you want to say something?
Yes, and the only other thing I was going to note was we are still in, we haven't switched over to the legislative agenda yet. So all the discussion that has been occurring tonight has still been on the work session. So there is still opportunity for public comment on the work session, the legislative session agenda. I think we're closing out the work session. That's the only thing I was going to note.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Majors.
It's still very confusing to someone, and I'm someone who follows this a lot. So if you are a person who just wants to check in for the first time, you don't necessarily see that. And all you have calendars across a variety of platforms. You know, you have the Google calendars, there are things on Facebook, all of this, and it all needs to be the same. And it needs to be someone's responsibility to make sure that that is the same. Thank you.
You're welcome. And it is someone's responsibility that it is the same. And we will check and see what you're referring to on your Google Calendar as well as your.
I'm not looking at the Google Calendar. Let me be clear about that.
Okay, Ms. Carter.
I
will confirm with you. Let me speak. I will confirm that what you're indicating, that it's not clear enough for you, that determines when we have our work session and we follow through then with the legislative session. So I'll make sure it's clear for you on the website so that there's no misunderstanding and you will be in attendance for each session.
It's not about me. All right. I have pulled up, I have gone to, right now, while we were talking, I went to City of Harrisburg. I'm looking at the part under City Council. I have gone to agendas. And I have filtered out for agendas 2021 and for May. And there is, nope, you're wrong. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I must have missed that. You're right. There is a work session and there is a legislative session. But again, if you don't filter it in just the right way, you miss it because they aren't even in, they don't even always come up in chronological order.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have two more people that would like to speak during public comment.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Ms. Campbell, you are unmuted. If you could please identify yourself for the record.
Hi, good afternoon or good evening. This is Dr. Kamika Campbell, Shipoke. Thank you for letting us comment tonight. Much appreciated. I just wanted to re-raise. I know first I want to say congratulations to all the winners. Congratulations to Ms. Wanda for winning, for being our mayor-elect for the next cycle. Hopefully November turns out exceptionally well as well. And to everyone else, congratulations as well to Asha and to Miss Shemaine. So I just wanted to make sure that we keep to the forefront of our minds. I think the point that Miss Parsons is making is that it's just difficult to navigate. And I don't have a similar comment, but I do want to echo her sentiments on that. But I do want to also make sure that we are still addressing the multimodal ways that we can have people participate in this process. So, public comment, I will participate any way that I can. Speaking my comment, writing my comment. But I do know there are other ways that we can involve the public in these public comments so that we're getting a more fuller perspective. I do think that the conversation earlier, point of clarification, is this public comment the only public comment having tonight just on the work session? Will there be one after the legislative session as well?
We will not have one after legislative session, Ms. Campbell.
Okay,
he will not. Wait a minute. By the way, it's President Williams. Thank you, Ms. Campbell. But
Miss President Williams.
We will after communications. We will have courtesy of the floor at that time. If you would like to speak, you may do so at that time. It won't be at the end of the legislative session. We think that's too long. But if you but if you had an opportunity to look at the legislative session, you may speak after communications. Then I would announce courtesy of the floor. So you will have an opportunity to also speak again.
Okay, and I wanted to also say that I didn't know which part of it, like if we could only comment to this part or not. But yeah, so and in the same way, I think in honoring titles, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, it is Dr. Campbell. So the other piece to that is I think that we can do a better job, and I did have a couple of the new council persons reach out to me about the multimodal way that we can involve folks. So I'm just hoping that city council and city government can make clear for us, are we taking written comments still? Are we taking public comments spoken? And what other ways can we involve folks in the process? because I think that's something we've been hearing a lot as we are, in trying to engage the public in various things. So I just want to make sure we're keeping that to the forefront as well. We do have several different ways that we think would be great from YPOC and some other entities that we think would be a great way to engage folks in the process. And then last but not least, we do have a variety of opportunities for President Williams, soon to be Mayor Williams, to speak to us at the joint effort we're having for Juneteenth. So we have sent a message. If there's another way we need to communicate, we've sent a couple of messages various ways. So if we need to send an official email, let us know about participating in Juneteenth as a speaker. Thank you.
I did not receive an email or any type of correspondence. I did receive an email from Ms. Smallwood.
Okay.
And included in that email was your phone number.
Okay.
So that's the only correspondence I received regarding Juneteenth.
Okay. Would you like us to send an official email?
Would you please?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we have another public comment. Okay, you are unmuted. If you could please identify yourself for the record.
Hello there, this is Winnie O, out South Allison Hill resident, also YPOC, also Harrisburg Comprehensive Plan Community Working Group. Thank you very much for the opportunity to submit comments today. I had a similar moment of not confusion, but I was a little caught off guard. I guess I wasn't clear that it started at 5:30. But again, I too would like to echo Miss Pamela Parsons' comment on perhaps maybe the lack of clarity on exactly like which session starts what time, because I too ended up logging in just a little after 5:30. So I mean, it's not just about her, it's not just about myself, but I would just like to suggest that at the end of the day, overall, it's very difficult navigating the city's website currently as it is, not only to find when meetings are, to find the how to join the meetings, or to know, which emails to send which public comments, or even just to get the correct comp plan for people to review. And again, these are not just my comments. This is also what I've been gathering from what other people have been expressing about the use, the ease of use and ease of access to certain information on the website. So I would just like to champion that as well. But I had other questions correlated to the issue of the parceling, and that was a bit confusing. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch this session. It was just a lot for me, I'm gonna be honest. But I was wondering, currently, do you guys track how many people actually show up for these meetings, meaning how many residents actually tune in for these meetings and provide comments either before or after? And if you could share that with us, you don't have to share their names, but if you could at least share the statistics on that thus far, that would be really appreciated. And also, I noted that folks, at least the YouTube, the videos, the commenting has been turned off. If you can provide some clarification as to why that is, because I know some people happen to watch these recordings afterwards, and I think it would definitely also be good to allow folks to have that kind of discourse or discussion whenever they happen to watch these at their leisure. I think will be helpful. I think that would be also another way to get community participation in a way that removes a lot of the barriers at times that may come with trying to find the correct email, making sure you're trying to get the correct person, stuff like that. But back to the topic of the veteran home residential area. And again, maybe it was covered prior to me getting here. If I'm being redundant, please just say so. My first question would be, for that particular project, what's the total capacity? I'm not familiar with the details of it. So also, if you guys can tag either in the comments or reshare that information, that'll be really appreciated. I would like to know for that housing project for the veterans, what is the total capacity in units to be created for the veteran village or any of the veteran housing that's expected? Because we're talking about that 5-acre easement versus the 15 and how that'll be used. And then also the next question will be then, what is the current total deficit or total need that needs to be met for our unhoused veteran population? And also, I'm guessing there probably would be a capacity that's unmet, or rather need that's unmet. So what options, if any, are being considered to meet that unmet capacity in terms of like a long-term approach for housing? And also, if the idea is to create the tiny home villages, I understand that would be using a lot more of the lateral space, but not really utilizing the vertical space available. Any ideas or consideration into that to add capacity for that need in the city, or is that being considered elsewhere? Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome yourself.
Council President, I believe that's all for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Petrowski. At this time, council members, may I have a motion to adjourn, please? The work session.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Meeting for the work session is officially adjourned. We now will move into the Harrisburg City Council legislative sessions for Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. I apologize to the public because the work session took longer than we expected, but we now will call that meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. Mr. Petrowski, please read the roll call for the legislative session.
Do you want to do caucus before we do the roll call?
Yeah, could we please do that? Because I'd like to make sure I have some time with the Law Bureau to get that amendment in order.
Okay.
And Council President, I just want to note before we go into the caucus, Mr. Grover brought to my attention, Bill 6 will actually it's listed wrong on the agenda for first reading. It'll be for ordinance for final passage.
Yes, I was going to ask you that. Okay. Mr. Petrowski, is Mr. Grover available for us to go into caucus?
He's here.
Okay, Mr. Grover.
Neil, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Neil.
Sorry about that. That was a lot of information. Which amendment, Councilman Mattson, are we talking about? Because I've kind of lost track through the.
I think it's the motion to remove the easement condition.
Okay, that's Ms. Baldock has that. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we can sidebar. I guess if that's allowed. I don't know that I need to take up the whole meeting. It's just I want to make sure I get that verbiage correct when I give my report.
Okay.
So I don't know if we can I can do a phone call or.
Yep, I can send you something, Dave.
Thank you.
Sure.
Preferably instead of going into another discussion.
Yeah, I just simply wanted, when I gave my report, to make sure I'm using the proper verbiage, and when we put the amendment up, that verbiage is correct.
Okay.
So that's all I needed.
Okay. Anything else, council members, before we go back into legislative session?
I do just have a question. I know it was some correspondence between Councilman Majors and I was looped into it. There was someone who put in their resume requesting to be a part of the audit committee. And I hadn't really heard any follow-up. I just wanted to know what was going on with that. I know we have a lot of different vacancies that we've been pushing to get filled. And I just want to make sure that if someone's interested, we do give that opportunity for them at least to be heard.
Can you give me a call and let me know who that person is, and then I will speak with our personnel director, Joni, tomorrow and find out what the process.
It's for the commission, I think, is what Councilmember.
Yes, for the
Yes,
commission.
the audit committee.
I mean, for the audit committee, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it would have to come down by way of resolution, and I don't know
right,
how we
it
do
would,
that.
it would. So Neil, did you have anything on record?
I do not have what you're speaking of. If council appoints the audit committee, so and normally the
Yeah,
council
but it
president.
normally would go through your office to have it come
Right,
down.
I'm saying, right. If you send a name up to us with the resume, with the request, we would prepare the resolution.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll get that sent up to you. No, is that okay, Wes, if I send it up, or did you want to send it up?
No, that's absolutely okay. I just wasn't sure if it had to go through the council president, then to Neil, or if any member of the council could submit a name directly to you.
It goes through the council president. I mean, under your rules, it goes to the council president.
It does go to me,
Right.
but you didn't, that's what and did you give a copy to the other council members?
I believe it was sent, I think Kirk was looped into it to make sure the council president got a copy of the resume. So I guess, should we resend it to all council members, including President Williams?
Would you please send that to me tomorrow or tonight when you get home, if you have that?
All right.
Okay.
Do you have someone for the human, what is it? I think I have to remember. Let me look. No, we filled that one. Okay. There's two other vacancies. There's one other vacancy that we have to fill. So I'll get that information out. Kirk, you'll get that information out to them tomorrow about the other vacancy that we have an opportunity to fill.
Sounds good.
Okay. I have that information at home. I left everything at home in my case. Okay, anything else, council members? We're up for discussion? Before we go into legislative session? Mr. Major, would you mind doing the invocation? And Mr. Allett, would you mind doing the Pledge of Allegiance?
That's fine.
Oh, no, yeah, that's fine with me. Are there any folks that we want to lift up in our community specifically during the invocation?
Okay. All right. Council members, another discussion during caucus. I'm now going to go back into the legislative session. Is everyone ready? Okay. Good evening. Welcome to Harrisburg City Council Legislative Session. Today is Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. Again, I apologize for the late convenience of the legislative session. I am now calling this meeting to order at 7:10 p.m. Mr. Petrosky, please do the roll call for the legislative session.
Mr. Allett?
Present.
Ms. Bowers?
Present.
Ms. Daniels?
Here.
Ms. Green?
Present.
Mr. Madsen?
Here.
The Majors?
Here.
Ms. Williams?
Present. Thank you, Mr. Petrosky. We now will move on to the invocation. We'll have the invocation by Mr. Majors.
All right. Thank you, President Williams.
You're welcome.
I just want to note that today, 1 year ago, the life of Mr. George Floyd was taken from him at the hands of law enforcement. And I just want to make sure that on this day, we remember all the victims of police-involved violence, and we lift up him and his family in prayer and our nation as we are continuing to deal with the coronavirus, and just ask that we all take a brief moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Majors. We now move on to Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Allen.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. We now move on to communications. We have none this evening. We now move on to courtesy of the floor. At this time, Mr. Petrosky, anyone who would like to speak before City Council, please do so now.
Sure, if anyone would like to speak for the legislative session portion of the public comment, could you please raise your hand and I'll unmute you? Again, this is the public comment section of the legislative session. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand and I will unmute you. When doing that, if you got to identify yourself for the record. Okay. Ms. Parson, you're unmuted.
Pamela Parsons, South Allison Hill. My comment now will reflect some things that I would like to say about the proposed Veterans Tiny Village. And my biggest concern is flood risk in a time of climate change. Yes, it is in 100-year floodplain, but I would point out that that's a FEMA map. Most FEMA maps are inaccurate, about 60% of them at this point. And the major flooding that happened in Texas, primarily in Houston, 75% of the areas that flooded were outside of the FEMA floodplain. And those that were within it, while they had a 100-year event, based on FEMA, it should have been a 25-year event. The particular site where the tiny village is located has the Susquehanna River on one side. It also has Paxton Creek, and we have the potential for urban flooding, especially if the areas around it continue to be developed, which is what I think is probably going to happen based on the way that Ms. Grove shared that the rest of the parcel is being marketed. When we hear 100-year floodplain, we tend to translate that into a flood can happen once every 100 years. But actually what it means is it is a 1 in 100 chance of being flooded on any given year. So that even a 1 in 100 chance of flooding on any year equates to about 1 in 5 chance that a home will be flooded at some point over a 30-year period. So that's just something to think about. And while that particular parcel, which I'm very familiar with, is often considered just kind of a yucky brownfields, not really good for much area. My concern is that we take people who are veterans, who are homeless or on the verge of homelessness or in and out of shelters, and sometimes homeless and sometimes not. And often those people aren't very visible to us on a daily basis. And often we think of them in this vast sea of homeless people, which are often, we consider homeless people to be throwaway people. So we're taking throwaway people and we're putting them in a piece of throwaway land where they may be subjected to even losing the tiny house that they have. And I would just like us to think about what 100-year floodplain really means and what that could mean down the road for the people who are living there, who have lost so much, and then to lose everything once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parson. Mr. Petrosky, is there anyone else who would like to speak before council?
Yes, we have two other people that would, 1 second. Okay, Ms. Campbell, you are unmuted.
Thank you so much. Dr. Kamiki Campbell, once again, Shirebrook area. I think that I really admire what they're trying to do with the tiny houses. And I know we don't have much of a say as far as, like, I know that our neighborhood association has been voicing their concerns as much as they could, especially with like some of the zoning issues to do with that properties and all that, and that property and the proposal. So I think it's not only is it a valid point to raise about the flood area, but it's also a valid point to raise about just kind of like a reassessment of that area as well. Like, do we know the real risk to putting that type of development on that property? And how can residents get better informed about it? I think that's the other thing, especially residents down in Shirebrook. There's so many things that questions that remain on the table, and a lot of like distrust of the process because it is so convoluted. Who is responsible for what who can actually be in on these decisions? That I think it would help if we were able to have more information. I know we have had representatives going to the various meetings, been in touch with the administration, but it has been a difficult way to go. It was not until we publicly called the mayor out for not answering any emails regarding some of that stuff that our neighborhood association president got a call back. So like these kinds of things don't bode well when we're trying to get answers to like what this would mean for our community, what it would mean for the businesses, what it would mean for the residents of the area. I still think it's an admirable project, and if there's a way to make it work, we should make it work. But there is that work to do of having the neighbors and everyone fully informed of what this means. So that's the first part I want to say about that. The second part I want to bring up is we have sent a couple of emails to our city administration about, and we have included some of our council members, and they have been very gracious in trying to get some traction with this. We had sent a request to kind of figure out how we could partner with the city on a Juneteenth, on our Juneteenth celebrations. The Bridge, La Cultura, YPOC, and a couple other organizations are coming together to provide some really great celebrations and content, and really just kind of trying to forge the way for tradition in the city. We are the capital city, we are in the capital region, and it would bode well for us to have our own municipality, our own city backing our very hard work that we're doing to pull together artists and community members and business owners and all kinds of folks on June the 19th at Reservoir Park. So if anyone can help us push that forward, what do we have to do to get sponsorship, collaboration, grants, whatever it is we need to do? We've been asking that question. We have been fully ignored on that point. And I just think in a city that is 78% BIPOC, 52% African-American, that we can do better than that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, Mr. Petrosky?
Yes, I have listed as Winnie O. If you would please identify yourself for the record, please.
It's me. Sure, it's me again, Winnie O. South Allison Hill. Same groups as before, YPOC, HCP, CWG, HARP, all that good stuff. My questions, actually, Dr. Campbell and Ms. Parsons have addressed the bulk of my concerns, so I will not be redundant to ask those. But perhaps my overarching concern that has been since we even started with the Bill 8 discussions up to now with the comp plan and even with this discussion is quite plainly, what are the standard operating procedures or just general procedures in place to effectively respond to these public comments and questions? And people are genuinely asking really key questions and expressing key concerns. And as yet, unless if I missed them, please redirect me. However, I have not really seen a clear way that these questions and concerns are being publicly addressed and publicly resolved and posted for further commenting and dialogue and and true engagement. So that's my general question is, when will we get comment responses from all the input people have been asking, or what is the current procedure that we should be aware of and share with the community? So for those who are unable to attend these sessions, so that they too can participate in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, Mr. Petrosky?
That is all, Council President.
Okay. Thank you. We now will move on to approval of minutes. Approval of minutes for the legislative session of May 11, 2021. Is there any omissions, deletions, or corrections, council members? Hearing none, the minutes will stand as approved. Reports of committees. Report from Chair Allett on the work session of May 25th, 2021. Mr. Allett, are you ready with your report?
I am, thank you. Up for discussion at our earlier work session tonight was Bill 6 of 2021, which is an ordinance authorizing and approving the intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the ICA for Harrisburg in accordance with Section 203D of the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authorities Act for cities of the third class. This is simply a ratification of some earlier legislation we had discussed by way of resolution and kind of the final stamp on a process that's required under the Act 47 process for us to allow the ratification of the ICA's agreement with the city. From here, it will go to the court system for final approval. And so I encourage my colleagues to pass this. I have been informed, though, via Neil, that there's a technical amendment that we will need to make. So I will have to make a motion for that technical amendment. And it's just adding a phrase to the end of the sentence: following the judicial approval of the city's application for final administrative order in the course of exiting Act 47, that will go to Section 5 of Bill 6. So I'll have to make that motion at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Allett.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Allett. We next will have a report from Chair Bowers on the work session of May 25th, 2021. Ms. Bowers, are you ready with your report?
Yes, thank you, President Williams.
You're welcome.
On Tuesday, May 25th, 2021, the Building and Housing Committee met to discuss Resolution 39 of 2020. Resolution 39 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing an extension of a commercial lease of space for the continued operation of the cable television government access channel, WHBG TV Channel 20. Just for some background, the city of Harrisburg entered into a commercial lease dated September 6, 2011 with the Harrisburg Parking Authority to lease a portion of the first floor commercial space within the Walnut Street Garage to continue housing the government cable access channel studio operated by the city, which is designated WHBG Channel 20. Mr. Neil Grover, City Solicitor, shared a brief overview of the resolution. Mr. Grover shared background information on the lease being a part of the asset transfer agreement of the parking system. Harrisburg Parking Authority assigned its rights under the lease to the Pennsylvania Economic Development Financing Authority, or PEDFA, effective December 1st, 2013, and the current lease is set to expire on August 31st, 2021. The parties have determined extending the term through July 31st, 2041 will serve their mutual interests and that of the viewing public. Mr. Grover noted that no rent payment is needed. Council members posed questions regarding the terms of the lease. In the event something should occur that the lease needs to be broken by either party, what happens? Mr. Grover replied that 20 years is the standard set by the Attorney General. I would urge my colleagues to support this Resolution 39 of 2020 as WHBG Channel 20 provides access to our residents to view our council meetings and other programming. This concludes the report of the Building and Housing Committee.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. We now will move on to report from Chair Mattson on the work session of May 25th, 2021. Mr. Mattson.
Yes, thank you, President Williams. On Tuesday, May 25th, the Community and Economic Development Committee met to discuss Resolution 39, a resolution authorizing an extension of a commercial, wrong one. A resolution approving the preliminary final subdivision plan to subdivide the property at 1103 South Front Street into two separate parcels in order to develop a tiny home village for homeless veterans on the southern end of the property. Director Knight gave an overview of the project. The applicant was present as well. It should be noted that the applicant had an issue with an easement. After a thorough review and spirited back and forth over the merit of the applicant's concern, my recommendation as chair is to propose an amendment removing the condition 1 requiring an easement of the right-of-way dedication to the width of the existing footprint of the capital area greenbelt running from property to north 1101 South Front Street to the bridge over the railroad tracks will be complemented alongside the other easements noted in the applicant to ensure that the public maintenance access to this critical stretch of the existing multi-use trail. I'm encouraging my colleagues to vote in affirmation of Resolution 39 as amended. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson.
Thank you.
We now move on to ordinance for passage. Bill 6 of 2021. Mr. Petrosky, please read it into record.
Bill 6 of 2021 is an ordinance authorizing and approving the intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority for Harrisburg in accordance with Section 203D of the Intergovernmental Cooperation Authorities Act for cities of the third class.
Mr. Alec, you have a motion for technical amendment?
I do, yes. I would like to make a motion to amend Bill 6, Section 5, adding the phrase at the end of the sentence, following the judicial approval of the city's application for a final administrative order in the course of exiting Act 47.
The motion, have a second, please.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion?
Just one quick question, and I guess a clarification for Neil. That language is, so we just needed that for further clarification because the language in accordance with the law would suggest that, but further clarification is just so that it's explicitly clear.
Yes, because there's 3 different acts in play right now. So
Okay.
you don't leave it open to interpretation. So
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other additional questions on the amendment? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
The amendment carries.
Okay, we had ordinance for amendment, which was Bill 6. Now we'll move for ordinance for final passage, which is Bill 6. Any questions or comments on Bill 6 as amended, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors, Mr. Majors,
Oh, sorry, I had to find the mute button. Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes,
Bill 6 as amended passes.
thank you. We now move on to resolutions. Please read Resolution 39 of 2020 into record, Mr. Petrosky.
Council President, I have a question quickly for your resolutions.
Go ahead, Mr. Alec.
So I know there was a resolution we'll need to introduce and that we'll need to suspend the rules for Resolution 48. Do we want to introduce it, then suspend the rules for both resolutions to discuss them?
That's Resolution 45.
Yep, Resolution 45 and then Resolution 40 will suspend the rules.
Resolution 39 is just a motion. It's a motion for amendment. So we don't have, but until we get to 45 is the only one that we have to suspend the rules.
No, resolution 40 as well.
Oh, you want resolution 42? Okay. Once I get to 40, then we can do also resolution 45.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Do we need to introduce it first?
We're on resolution 39 of 2020.
No, I know. The question is resolution 45 is not on the agenda, so we have to bring it up from the floor.
Yes, we do. But we'll do 40. We have resolution 40. We will suspend the rules. And we'll also at the same time bring resolution 45 off the floor so that we can, under the suspension, we can discuss that.
All right, perfect. Thank you for clarifying. Sorry.
You're welcome. Now we'll move back on to resolution 39 in 2020, Mr. Allen. Mr. Petrosky, I'm sorry, were you in the middle of reading resolution 39, 2020 into your record, please?
Yeah, I read resolution 39 of 2020. We're just ready for vote.
Okay. Council members, are there any questions or comments on resolution 39 of 2020? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Resolution 39 of 2020 passes.
Moving on to resolution 39 of 2021. Please read that into record, Mr. Petrosky.
Resolution 39 of 2021 is a resolution approving the preliminary final subdivision plan to subdivide the property at 1103 South Front Street into two separate parcels in order to develop a tiny home village for homeless veterans on the southern end of the property.
Thank you, Mr. Madsen. You have a motion for amendment.
Yes, President Williams, would like to make a motion to amend Resolution 39 of 2021 by removing condition 1 requiring an easement of the right-of-way dedication, the width of existing footprint of the capital area greenbelt running from the property to the north, 1101 South Front Street to the bridge over the railroad tracks will be completed alongside the other easements noted in the application to ensure that all the public maintenance access to this critical stretch of the existing multi-use trail.
Thank you. Council members, any questions or comments on the amendment? I'm sorry, I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Now, council members, any questions or comments on the amended resolution 39 of 2021?
Yeah, on the amendment?
Yes.
Yes. The only other, the one question I have is I indicate during the work session, the owner of the property indicated that they would also be willing to provide a letter saying that regarding any future sale or use of the property, that they would still grant an easement for the use of the capital area greenbelt. Is it possible to make that a condition? So not the easement that is currently in there, but the applicant indicated during the conversation that she'd be willing to include that or have that a part of any future sale of the property, if I am remembering correctly.
And if you remember correctly, I think Mr. Grover, our solicitor, addressed why it wasn't agreeable to do a letter attached to the amendment. Maybe he can clarify it again for you, Mr. Grover.
It's the applicant who we asked, do they accept or reject the conditions? And the applicant was not in favor of that condition. The minutes of this meeting can reflect exactly that promise that was made by Ms. Grove, I think very carefully and in good faith. And the Greenbelt's response to it tonight, which is also very positive. But as a condition on the veterans application, as they've rejected it, and it deals with neighboring land, it really would not belong there as a rule. And the Greenbelt folks and the owners of the neighboring property have to work that through at the time of the sale.
Because of other potential buyers, right, of the other 15 acres?
Right, I think it's where exactly it would go. The easement is going to depend on what the new use is when a buyer comes in.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Is that
Okay.
clarifying enough for you, Mr.?
It clarifies it some, but again, I wasn't speaking to any specific easement, but I understand that, and that all that would have to be worked out by any potential, whatever the potential buyer of that property may be. Okay, and then the only other question that I would have is for, well, it's not on the amendment, so I'll ask the question after the amendment.
Are you sure, Mr.? This is the time to ask the questions on this amendment.
Okay, well, if we're looking at the amendment, the question I have is to the larger, I guess the applicant regarding contingencies or plans for flooding, if they, that's what my question would be pertaining to. So.
Oh, okay. I don't know if the applicants are still available. Are they? I don't see her or him.
Hello, this is Tom Zimmerman, President.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Okay.
That's okay. And thank you, and that's a great question. And I really don't think that our engineering firm is still on the call, but I know it has been addressed, and I know that we are working with the engineering and the environmental studies to make sure that it is at the highest possible level for the community. Oh, there's Christine.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll let Christine talk.
Okay.
That's right. So Christine Hunter with H. Black and Associates, we're the engineering firm. And the proposed development, the proposed homes are higher than the 100-year floodplain. The community center is 4 feet higher. The tiny homes are 2 feet higher. So we feel that we are, in a good situation using the land as it is.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then the only other question I would have then is, do you have any indication from any of the studies that you've done the last time any of that area has flooded? And if so, how high did the water level rise to?
I do not have that information. I don't know when the last time it was flooded. I cannot answer that question.
Ms. Hunter, do you have any knowledge of that?
I don't have that information either.
Okay. What do you, Mr. Grover, do we have anything in the city of Harrisburg logs that would indicate about the flooding that was done in that area?
There are plenty of records on what every area that it's flooded, how high it's gotten.
Okay, so we can.
Mr. Knight, if he is still here, might know because he does the floodplain analysis, but I'm not sure he's still here.
He is not still here. Just to make you aware, but yes, he would be the person that would have that information.
Thank you, Ms. Bada. So, Mr. Majors, do you want to direct Mr. Petrosky to get that information for you from Mr. Knight?
Yes, if you could. And I just, again, I was, because of the length of our work session, I didn't want to raise those questions here because I know we still had other things to get to at the work session. So that's why I'm raising them now. And I guess if he could answer that, that'd be great. The only other question I would have then for the engineer and Mr. Zimmerman is, are these permanent structures or are they structures that could be easily moved? Like I said, I understand being above the base elevation, which is great. And that 2 feet and 4 feet even also exceeds some of the, what the NFIP and FEMA would recommend in terms of base elevation above, building above the base elevation and floodplains in the 100-year floodplain. I'm just, are those structures going to be permanent or are they easily movable?
My understanding is that the structures are intended to be permanent. Certainly the community building is permanent. The tiny homes also are permanent. They're, to my knowledge, they are not designed to be movable. They will have, running water, sewage, electricity.
Councilman Majors, this is the subdivision plan. The whole land development plan will be coming back to the council.
Okay, so those questions may be better suited for. Okay, so some of those questions may be better suited for the final land development plan, not just the subdivision.
Right. So,
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Majors. Great question, Mr. Majors. That's interesting to see if they are movable because they are building homes that are movable. Any other additional questions, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky, on the amended motion.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Please call the vote as amended for Resolution 39, 2021, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Resolution 39 as amended passes.
Moving on to Resolution 40 of 2021.
Yeah, Resolution 40 of 2021 is a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with Boyer and Ritter LLC to perform the city of Harrisburg's annual audit financial report, DCD CLGS 30, for the year ending December 31st, 2020.
Before we move on, Resolution 40, we have a motion to bring Resolution 45 off the floor.
I'll go ahead and make that motion. I'd like to make a motion to bring resolution 45 of 2021 up from the floor for discussion.
Have a second? We have a second to bring Resolution 45 up?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Now, we have a motion to suspend the rules so that we can address Resolution 40 of 2021 and also Resolution 45 of 2021.
Do we need to vote on the motion to bring that up from the floor? Or is that just?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm moving too fast. I think we did get a first and a second.
I can read Resolution 45.
Into record.
Yeah. And whenever you're ready.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. All right, so Resolution 45 of 2021 is proposed bringing from the floor is a resolution appointing Mr. Neil A. Grover to serve on the board of the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Petrosky. Now, may I have a motion to suspend the rules to address and discuss Resolution 40 and also Resolution 45 of 2021?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Allen.
Okay, so regarding resolution 40 of 2021, from my understanding from a conversation with Neil last week and his explanation, I believe it was the start of our meeting tonight or caucus, I can't remember which. Part of the principles that are prescribed to our auditor requires them to enter into an annual contract, even though they're under a 3-year engagement with us. And this is something that we would need to ratify, even though we're under a longer term contract with them is it GAP principles, Neil?
It's GAP and GASB. They put notices in their letters about what we're subject to and what they'll be applying each year in terms of their process.
So based on what we're passing tonight does not change any substance or content of our overarching agreement with them, correct?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't change the length. It doesn't change the money. It doesn't change the report, the obligation to produce the audit. It is in very many ways just checking a box. And you had approved the same process, I think 5 times in a row with Merle Duzel. Yeah, through their 5-year contracts of. And they started the same way with a 3-year contract and 2 1-year extensions. But it was all of those were voted on annually to satisfy this audit issue.
Very good. Are there any questions from my colleagues on this particular resolution? I will start with Councilmember Bowers.
No, thank you. I don't have any questions.
Councilmember Green. Did we lose her for a moment? Councilmember Mattson.
No question for me, thanks.
Okay, Council President Williams.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Majors.
Oh, sorry, no questions.
And Councilmember Daniels.
No, no question.
All right, Councilmember Green, one more time.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can move off of resolution 40 at this point. Do you want to discuss resolution 45, Council President?
Yes, you may.
Oh, you want me to?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so resolution 45, as introduced earlier, is to satisfy a requirement with the state to make sure that we can move forward with the, I guess, the overall transit process and the, I guess, the migration of it all. So they need one more board member. So the administration has nominated Neil to serve out a one-year term on that board to ensure that they can get everything properly set up. Am I summarizing that correctly, Mr. Grover?
It is. It's to get their initial charter approved by the Department of State, which they need in order to get a tax ID number from the U.S. Department of Revenue. And so it is a process where their new fiscal year is supposed to start July 1. So the organization is up against it in terms of trying to formation. And we need a last member in order to hold on to our seats on the board.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Rich Barr, I believe, is available online. If he's still here, we had asked him if he could line up, if council member had questions for him. He had presented to you previously about the new transportation authority, and you had approved Mr. Kotz, I believe at your last meeting, as the first of the two members.
Mm-hmm. That is correct, yes.
May I make a statement?
Go ahead. Hey, Rich, how's it going?
Good to see everybody this evening. Thank you. So this is one of two last steps. So the next step you'll be getting the moment you make this appointment, I will have to send back to the council for approval the articles of incorporation. So I have to be able to take Mr. Grover's name and put it into the articles of incorporation with all the other board members from all the other municipalities, send it back to you for approval so I can submit it to the Secretary of State. It is sort of time sensitive at this point with July 1 quickly coming upon us.
Okay. Thank you.
And I should mention, I think it's fair, I've talked with Neil about this before, I will have to recuse myself from voting on this because they're a client of mine in my day job.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Allett.
Are there other questions from council members?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah. Starting with Councilmember Daniels.
No.
Councilmember Majors.
No questions.
Council President.
No questions.
Councilmember Mattson.
No questions for me, thank you.
Councilmember Green.
No, no questions.
And Councilmember Bowers.
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Turn it back over to you, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Allett. Now I have a motion to go back into the legislative session.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Majors. Now we go to Resolution 40, 2021. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 40 passes.
Moving on to Resolution 45. Please read that into record, Mr. Petrosky. For a vote.
Yeah, Resolution 45 of 2021. It's a resolution appointing Mr. Neil A. Grover to serve on the board of the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority.
Any additional questions or comments, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allett?
At the Syracuse.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Petrosky.
Resolution 45.
Moving on to Resolution 41, 2021. Mr. Petrosky, please read that into record.
Resolution 41 of 2021 is a resolution approving the third proposed 2021 budget reallocation.
That will be placed in Budget and Finance Committee. Moving on to Resolution 42.
Resolution 42 of 2021 is a resolution authorizing the city engineer Wayne Martin and the city grant manager Rebecca Vollmer to act as the city's authorized representatives for the Multimodal Transportation Fund grant for the Courthouse Connection Project.
That will be placed in the Administration Committee. We now move on to Resolution 43.
Resolution 43 of 2021 is a resolution approving a preliminary final land development plan to convert the existing 10,920 square foot building, formerly the regional headquarters of the Salvation Army, located at 1122 Green Street, into a 16-unit apartment complex with associated off-street parking.
That will be placed in Community and Economic Development Committee. We now move on to Resolution 44.
Resolution 44 of 2021 is a resolution approving a preliminary final subdivision and land development plan consisting of the subdivision of 238 to 248 Hummel Street, the construction of 6 single-family townhomes located at 238 to 248 Hummel Street and 1216 Kittentini Street.
That also will be placed in Community and Economic Development Committee. We now move on to old business, council members. Is there any old business that you wanted to address?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers.
Thank you, President Williams. I just wanted to clarify a few things just from some of the comments that we received this evening. I just wanted to note regarding resident participation in our meetings. You can join via the Zoom link. You can participate by phone, and the submission of written comments never cease to my knowledge. If you have your written comments in by 4 p.m. the day of our meetings, they are received via email at publiccomment@harrisburgpa.gov. They meet the same criteria as if we were in person. You must include your name, your address. Your comment should be under 2 minutes when read out loud, and it's limited to 1 comment per resident. So I just wanted to clarify that. And 2, in navigating our website, please don't forget we have a new website that is on the way. In communication with our GIS administrator 2 weeks ago, there are plans for public meetings with several neighborhood organizations to literally walk through the website and gain your feedback. It's very much appreciated. I think council members have seen a preview and we've offered commentary, but you, the residents, will be utilizing this website just as much as we are, and we want it to be user-friendly and accommodating to everyone. So once we receive those dates, times, if they will be virtual or in person safely, we will certainly share those. But I just wanted to note a new website is on the way, and that public comment via a written format has not changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. That was our chair of Building and Housing and also under ITT. Thank you, Ms. Bowers, again. Any other old business?
Yes, President Williams.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Councilman Madsen.
Real quick, we have our public meetings regarding the comprehensive plan are going to be Wednesday, June 9th. That's going to be at Reservoir Park. And then the following Wednesday, June 16th at 6 p.m. at Italian Lake. Both meetings are at 6 p.m. Just wanted to give a quick announcement about that.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Madsen. Mr. Majors?
Yes. Again, I'll just note this will be, I guess, the 3rd or 4th council meeting where I mentioned that the police are supposed to provide us with quarterly reports on the complaints that are filed with the Bureau. We have yet to receive them. And then I also had sent an email, I know, a couple weeks ago regarding some information that we had been requesting. Last indication I got was 2 weeks ago saying that it was being worked on, but you know, a timeline would be much appreciated. I said this is just for us to be able to get that information out to the public, and then don't know if I know last indication with respect to the CLIAC was the applications were being the application document that people would have to fill out was being worked on. And do we have any status update on that?
Okay. Excuse me, Ms. Green, she's a public chair. Could you please look into why we have not received updated reports? And also, could you please check on the application status for Mr. Majors?
Yes, I'll get that information out to you. The application is being developed. Hopefully it'll be out soon. So I'll get that information to you along with a timeline for that.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Majors, anything else?
Not under old business.
Okay. Anything else under old business, council members? We now move on to new business. Is there any new business that you would like to address, Mr. Majors?
Well, first I know Council Vice President Allen had his hand up, so he may.
Oh, I thought you, okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Allen, I didn't see your hand.
It's okay.
You have it on your chin, that's why I didn't see it. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just really wanted to acknowledge as the one person who's officially leaving the team as of December. I did want to comment about last week's primary election results and congratulate President Williams on making a move and winning the Democratic primary for mayor. So I want to say congratulations to her. And also recognize in council that Councilmember Daniels and Councilmember Green have won the primary for re-election, and two potential newcomers to council after November would be Ralph Rodriguez and Jocelyn Rawls. So this is what it's all about, everybody, people coming out and voting and the continuation of government in our city. So congrats to the winners in the primary and onward to November and beyond.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Majors?
Yes. So under new business, just a couple things. One was, I think we're all in receipt of information with respect to the American Rescue Plan, which is going to be a significant investment in our communities across the country. Specifically, I know between Harrisburg and Dauphin County, we are slated to receive a significant amount of money that has some specific uses. Just want to know if and when we're planning to have any discussions on that as a body and with the administration, because we want to ensure that that investment is done properly, and that all parties have an opportunity to have a dialogue about that. And then additionally, I know, just want to continue to note and mention about people being able to access the COVID-19 vaccine. The Department of Health website has plenty of sources where you can go to. There are plenty of locations in the city of Harrisburg now that do have vaccines. So if folks are interested in getting vaccinated, go to the Department of Health website, look at vaccine, and you can find a location in our city that has vaccine. And as the numbers go up, I was just curious if we have worked on, because I haven't seen anything yet, a plan to return to the potential of in-person meetings. I know the vaccine numbers are beginning to increase, and I know a lot of businesses, including the legislature, state government, and other municipal entities are starting that process. So just wanted to know if we've had any discussion, or if any discussions are ongoing about that and how we can proceed. Because to Councilwoman Bauer's point about all the ways people can communicate with us to participate in our meetings, I know one thing that folks have always enjoyed, and we enjoy too, and I miss seeing everybody in person. And if we could get back to a in-person meeting procedure safely, I think that would also help as well. And
Okay,
note Arts Fest is this weekend.
okay. Well, to your question about in-person meetings, that was going to be one of my new business items, is that we will continue with our Zoom meetings until we come back from a hiatus. We will go on hiatus July 6th. That will be our last council meeting. And we will be returning August the 31st. And that meeting will be in person. We will resume our in-person meetings in council chambers. And we will do it with the safety requirements in mind. Also, the American Rescue Plan that you're speaking of, the city of Harrisburg did receive $23.3 million yesterday. So we will be looking into meeting with the administration to make sure that we reallocate that money into a separate fund. The third thing that I have is the youth summer program that the Harrisburg Housing Authority and the city of Harrisburg collaborate with will begin this year, starting in June. And that's all the information I have for new business, under new business. Is there anything else, council members? Okay, hearing none. Please make sure that everyone is aware of the youth summer program for those individuals who may be interested in participating this summer. And with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a second, please.
Second.
I have a second, and the meeting is finally
Second.
adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Everyone have a
Good night.
good night. Good night.